Hello. I am a member of one of the biggest religious groups in the entire world, Barnyarditology. Barnyarditology is what Genghis Khan famously described as, quote, the pinnacle of modern religion, and what Alexander the Great called an absolute fucking beast. Barnyarditology can be defined by three foundational pillars: the Father, the Son, and the Book of Scripture. But unlike other loser virgin religions, Barnyarditology defines the Father as Wild Mike, the Son as this kid's massive thick ass crack, and the Book of Scripture being this 4K Criterion Blu-ray of Steve Odekirk's 2006 animated masterpiece, Barnyard. Hailed by critics as, quote, like Animal Farm if it were actually good and not written by a goddamn socialist, Barnyard is considered to be many not just a modern retelling of William Shakespeare's Hamlet and Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but also in of itself an incredibly gripping, political, dark comedic, satirical character study thriller that so many of our great filmmakers like Sam Raimi, George Miller, the Wachowskis, Jon Favreau, and even Chris Hansen took massive inspiration from.
Get out, kids. Nothing no strip search won't cure ya. Is this thing still on?
Sit right on that stool, please.
Don't believe me? Just watch this scene in Barnyard that Sam Raimi just completely copied beat for beat in this scene in the first Spider-Man film.
Are you in or are you out?
I'm inside of your fucking green asshole.
I like that, Spider-Man. You showed me a new way of life. They'll turn on you, Spider-Man.
I used to be afraid of this.
If you
Green
wiggle
Goblin
into
suit.
my...
That's all I know.
If you wiggle into my slippery little colon, Spider-Man, we can take this city for ourselves.
He's not fucking gay.
Not gay, homo. Stop. I'm not gay.
He's a Spider-Man. It's only gay if you receive. Don't worry. I will bear this cross, Spider-Man.
And that's just one scene, as countless other moments throughout this film have been either heavily inspired by, copied, or just straight up ripped off from this film. Barnyard is truly a film that not just defies cinema, but is cinema itself. According to legendary porn director Gaspar Noé, he famously stated, quote, got recommended it from my good friend Marty. I took an edible before the screening and fucking loved it. And you can totally see why when you see the absolute stacked cast this film boasts, like Kevin James, Sam Elliott, Monica from Friends, Donald Glover's dad, Todd Packer from The Office, Sheen from Planet Sheen, and others. But before you automatically assume that this is one of those animated movies that only exists to service a super famous mega cast of A-list celebrities and stroke their egos, just wait until you see what this movie has in terms of its deep character studies, particularly regarding its waifus. Now, if you remember this video I made a while back, you may remember that I basically have a PhD in waifuology, and believe me when I say that out of every anime that I've ever seen, I can definitely say that Barnyard has two of the hottest waifus of all time, the first being the Sigma Chad god himself, Biggie Cheese.
Mr. Bombastic.
Now, I don't even have to guess. I know that this mouse has the biggest penis in all of movie history. Just the way he exudes ubermensch alpha dog masculinity, the way he seduces not just the crowd of characters, but the audience, myself included, with his smooth voice and his smacking lips, the way that he's singing a Shaggy song, even though he's clearly a parody of Biggie. If this isn't a sex god, then I don't know what is. But speaking of sex, he's not the only waifu that dominates the screen, as we're also introduced to our other sex icon himself, Snotty Boy. This man is the textbook definition of a pussy slayer. No joke, if you go to the dictionary right now, it doesn't even have a definition, it just has a picture of this kid. I bet you right now that you can't think of another character in movie history that gets more pussy than Snotty Boy. I mean, just look at the way he exerts his dominance. Look at the way he just kicks the door down and walks headfirst, is just full of the exaggerated swagger of a literal god. I will just say this right now, lots of anime can claim to have the best girl, but only Barnyard can claim to have two best girls. Speaking of girls, we need to talk about the politics, the deep, subtle, nuanced political undertones of 2006 Barnyard, and believe me, there are many. For you see, for a film that came out in 2006, Barnyard is quite possibly one of the most progressive movies I have ever seen. I mean, this shit is so woke, so progressive, that it makes even Michael Moore blush. For you see, this film is about so many things. It's a secret trans narrative about Otis coming to terms with his gender identity, that it makes The Matrix look like fucking child's play.
It's a beautiful night. I remember when I used to sit out here with your sister.
I don't have a sister.
Oh, yeah. That was you, wasn't it?
It's a pro-veganism narrative that highlights the positives and bearings that veganism brings on not just the Barnyard, but humanity as well.
I love the smell of bacon. There, I said it.
It's an anti-child molestation story that makes Sound of Freedom look like fucking Republican fan fiction, which it basically is, let's be real. It's a gripping, heartbreaking retelling of the classic son gets revenge for his father narrative that adds so many layers and nuances that it'd be too complicated to discuss in this video, because you need an IQ of at least 420 to understand this movie's plot. And did I forget to mention that this film has easily one of the most complex stories ever? Well, surprise, surprise, it does. Because this movie is more complex than all of Stanley Kubrick and Charlie Kaufman's films put together. There are so many moments that will baffle you, confuse you, leave you wondering, wow, that was a brave, ambitious choice, but I don't understand why exactly they made that choice. I guess I'm just too dumb soy baby gamer brain to understand this nuanced philosophical film. Take for example this moment where Ben, aka Otis's dad, aka Sam Elliott's best performance, whips out a guitar and just randomly plays I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty, only to play this exact song again literally 2 minutes after Ben sings it when he kicks the shit out of these coyotes. Why did this movie play the exact song back to back with only this sick-ass Terrence Malick shot standing in the way between the two usages of the song? Shut up, you don't understand. It's clearly a metaphor for something, or it's vital for the story. I don't know, you just don't get it. Shut up. Or how about this moment where this very tender and heartbreaking scene where Ben dies and then literally no less than maybe 6 hours later, the entire barnyard throws a rager in celebration of Otis being the new leader. Either the farm animals have the fastest grieving process ever, or they just gave that little of a fuck about Ben. But whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter, because what does matter is that this eventually leads to the introduction of another GOAT character, Wild Mike, which, listen, I would go more in depth about, but if I did then this video would be 3 hours long, because I wouldn't even know where to begin with the genius known as Wild Mike. I'll just say this, in the way that Aslan from Narnia was Jesus in that universe, Wild Mike is Jesus in this universe. Don't believe me? I mean, just look at how these characters bow down to their god, like holy shit. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but this film is also one of the best Christian movies of all time, so suck a dick, Martin Scorsese and Paul Schrader. Anyway, on the topic of gods, we have to talk about the anti-god in Barnyard, Dag the Coyote. Dag in many ways is a combination of Thanos from the Avengers, Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, and the eugenics movement from real-life history. You see, Dag believes himself to be the supreme animal, the supreme being that believes that coyotes are the dominant species that can take and eat whoever and whenever they want. However, he's also a sympathetic villain as well, because at the end of the day, it's just the law of nature. His people are starving, and he needs to eat these thick chickens to feed his people, almost like a necessary evil to help others, like when Jean Valjean stole a loaf of bread before Ben the cow beat the shit out of him with his guitar. However, Dag takes it too far, to the point that he genuinely believes that he's better than the farm animals, because he's racist.
Round, you're fat.
In his eyes, his justification to take some farm animals to eat is just all part of social Darwinism, that the strong prey over the weak and only the dominant species must survive. As you can clearly see, Dag is a very complex villain and deserves to be on the Hall of Fame of greatest anime villains of all time. However, when there's an anime villain, there is an anime protagonist, with that character being Otis, who just like every other shonen anime protagonist ever, gets his ass ass handed to him when he first meets the main villain, only to somehow get inexplicably stronger without any sort of training or even at least some amount of passage of time whatsoever that allows him to go toe-to-toe with the main villain and eventually beating him. It is truly both a classic example yet subversion of the hero's journey arc that Joseph Campbell outlined, and I guarantee you that if he were alive today, he would coom in his pants realizing that he found the perfect movie that symbolized everything that he wrote about. Now you're probably wondering right now, hey, is this guy for real? Is this, for real, a good movie? Believe me, I can absolutely assure you that I am 100%, absolutely, positively, not lying right now. For real, because I would never joke about anything this important in my entire life. And if you don't believe me, here are some quotes that I found about the movie that came from real critics, and definitely not my friends. Citizen Kane wishes it was this good. Barnyard is a mooing experience. It doesn't matter what song Johnny Cash covered. Sam Elliott did it better. Animation is not a genre, it is a medium, and after watching this masterpiece, I'm convinced that it is the superior medium. Otis is hot. Kevin James's most iconic role pre-Paul Blart and post-King of Queens. The 2006 film Barnyard saved my sex life, and so on and so forth. Because what I said is fact, and facts don't care about your feelings. As Otis would say, a strong man stands up for himself, but a stronger man stands up for others. And I, as a strong human man, stand up for not just myself, but for all barnyarditologists worldwide, because we are a community. And as the saying goes, barnyarditologists, together, strong. This is Timmy, the head pastor of Barnyarditology, signing off.